Hey, that's pretty good. Scotty Barnes selected as the injury replacement for the Toronto Raptors in the All-Star game. They have a representative, and even cooler, Scotty Barnes won't end up being one of those. This is the only guy to have X amount of points, X amount of assists, X amount of rebounds, stocks, steals, blocks, whatever, and end up not being selected to an All-Star game. Kind of what happened with Pascal last year because he got selected as an injury replacement. And you're like, man, if a guy putting up like 25, 7 and 6 isn't getting in there, what are we really doing here? And with Scotty Barnes, you have the exact same thing. Massive numbers. He's been incredible this season and has made a jump in his game that a lot of people didn't expect. And some people did expect it. But even in that expectation, I think that there were jumps that were made that even, went beyond what his biggest supporters thought. His biggest fans, biggest supporters in the analyst community, whatever. Even in the front office, like Masai said, he didn't expect Scotty to be this good. So to see him rewarded with an all-star selection is really cool, especially since Scotty pays attention to this stuff, and this stuff obviously matters to him a lot. We can think back to when he got Rookie of the Year, how meaningful that was for him. Let's read some statistics because I don't want to be on here too long. I just wanted to do a little podcast and video to kind of like commemorate this moment that Scotty, he did make it. 20.2 points per game, 8.1 rebounds, 5.8 assists. The easy stuff, the counting stats. 1.2 steals, 1.5 blocks. Immense season. It's not 3 stocks altogether, but this is firmly in the camp of, the Ben Simmons style all-star seasons when he got selected. But Scotty's numbers are just way bigger, way more bombastic. And the scoring is just, it's on another level, quite frankly. 48% from the field, 36%, almost 37% from 3 on, get this, over 5 attempts per game. We look at Pascal, who his 3 has been climbing a little bit more this year, but it's on such small volume that you're like, does it affect the defense? What does it bring? The really incredible thing about Scotty is not that this year his jump to all-star form, it doesn't just include, a significant rise in his three-point percentage at 0.365%, 36.5. It represents a significant uptick in volume, which allows defenses to respond to him accordingly, which allows him to space out for teammates, which allows the offense, the very fabric of it, to change for the better with him on the court. He's been great. Kind of historic, not just historic in the sense that he's the youngest all-star ever selected for the Raptors. I believe Vince Carter was 23 when he was selected. Scotty's just 22 years old. I think they were both their third season, but back then guys stayed in college a little bit longer. And so you have this big uptick in volume from the three-point line. You have him still getting a lot of his own self-created baskets on the inside. I think Stevie on Twitter had mentioned that he's 5th in high leverage points at this point in the season, but only a handful of points behind Steph Curry, who's number 1. Basically, Scotty Barnes has blocked the hell out of guys at the rim, created a lot of extra possessions for the Raptors in transition with turnovers, steals, blocks, all this kind of stuff, has done a tremendous job to work on his jumper to get it to the point where it's a real weapon, and has still encompassed all the main things about his game that brought him to Rookie of the Year, that made him somebody who, even if he underwhelmed some people in his second season, that sophomore season, he still impressed people around the NBA. And for someone like myself who went and looked at all of the data and then rewatched all the film, saw the passing, did it a couple times over, I thought that there was a lot of stuff, meat on the bone, I should say. And I recognized him and thought, like, this is one of the best passers in the world. All that stuff is still relevant. Nothing dropped off for him. He's gotten better at a lot of things, and nothing has dropped off. Sometimes you see a trade-off when players are making that step. Their hierarchy of what they want to do on a given possession, who knows? But Scotty, yeah, he's figuring stuff out. Yeah, he's trying to get to a level past this. But the fact that he's even taken this step, and it's really cool that the NBA, Adam Silver, has recognized this step and cataloged it with that all-star pin. You made it. You're of this class of player. I think that's fantastic, man. So it's historic in a sense, like he's the youngest Raptor to ever be selected. Of course, it's historic in that he won't be a snub who put up these gaudy, insane statistics, which people would have been able to point to, obviously, when I was listening to the opposing broadcasts, a lot of times they say that Scotty is the biggest snub that they could see. And that's people are looking at Scotty's numbers and they're looking at Kristaps Porzingis and they're looking at, I suppose, like maybe Derek White. I know Kobe White was on an infographic at one point. So he beat him. He beat them out. Andrews Outdoor Adventures, AOA, says sign him the max. The Raptors certainly will. He's definitely gonna get that max. We have from Jordan says Chris Bosh is the youngest Raptor All-Star. I'll have to look that up. I thought it was Scotty, but that's interesting because Chris Bosh did 2 years at Virginia Tech, didn't he? If I remember correctly. Oh my goodness. No, he didn't. Oh, Chris Bosh. I'm lying to everybody. My apologies. He's not the youngest Raptor All-Star. Chris Bosh made it at 21 or during his 21-year-old season. Egg on my face, obviously. Jordan, thank you for pointing that out. Regardless, let's not rain on anybody's parade here. Scotty made the All-Star team. On top of that, I kind of wanted to just like dig through some of his statistics. I've got cleaning the glass up here. So basically, cleaning the glass, as far as I know, is, well, as far as I see it, is the best statistical website. So what they do is they categorize players into like forward, wing, combo, point, big, those types of categorizations. And then they track people based on how they perform in their chosen statistics. And then they give them a percentile rank. So Scotty is categorized as a forward. He's been categorized as a forward rookie season, sophomore season, and third season. His usage among forwards, the 91st percentile, 25.5%. He's gotten a lot more of the basketball, over 4%. Like, if there's 100 possessions happening during a game, the usage percentage, Scotty is going to use 4 more of those possessions this season than he did last season. Very good. His points per shot attempt, way up compared to last season, 116 to 106. His assist percentage is in the 97th percentile for all forwards, 24.3%. Massive, massive numbers. Assist to usage percentage, 0.95, which is really good because assist to usage isn't everything, and people are kind of over the assist to turnover ratio. It's no longer Chris Paul's NBA. However, it's nice to see big assist numbers against big. Well, he turns the ball over quite a bit, but that's not here nor there, really. It's something everybody's working on. He has big assist numbers to go along with it. On top of that, the shooting stuff. So I love players who create their own shot. I love players who create looks for others. We knew for a very long time that Scotty could create his own shot since coming into the NBA. He was a guy who could wriggle and mash his way into the middle of the defense, able to get to spots on the floor, and has had a tremendous touch shot. I've tracked his contested hook shots, so has Sports Info Solutions. Both his rookie season and his sophomore season, both of them came back as elite. He's got incredible touch. You've seen it. His ability to square himself to the basket and just get the ball to like fall in is uncanny. And people will remember them most likely during these massive flurry of buckets in the fourth quarter, self-creation, kind of bullfrogging into the lane, getting to a spot, putting the shot up, and scoring. Not to mention, like, the Jeremy Sohan poster he got in San Antonio during that incredible fourth quarter. Not to mention that dunk on Max Christie, stepping through him, putting him in the rim that he got against the Lakers during that debacle that we got the awesome Darko rant about Scotty where he said he's the face of the league. He's going to do all this kind of stuff. And yeah, so per forwards, he's in the 88th percentile as far as like assisted percentage. That means that only 12% of forwards are responsible for creating their own looks without an assist more often than he does. And that's fantastic because if you can create a bucket for yourself and others without needing an assist, that's great because it means you can work from static situations. You can build out offensive packages around that. Assisted at the rim, 56%, 79th percentile. Assisted in the mid-range, 36%, 87th percentile. Assisted three, 91%. Most threes are assisted. That's not a bad number. He's in the 82nd percentile. For a guy who we're looking at him, right? Like, what's going on here? What are you going to do as a shooter? What's going to happen when teams lay off you? How are you going to do when teams are playing that way that they did in January of last year? when everybody sank and teams were sitting in the paint. What he did was he went in the gym, he worked on it, he came back with like a truly, truly fantastic jumper, especially considering like where it was, where it is now. And here's my favorite statistic of the jump shot stuff: non-corner threes. This is, to me, the biggest thing besides the blocks. This is the biggest thing that's allowed Scotty to make the All-Star leap. 38% on non-corner threes. Above the break threes are farther away from the rim. Above the break threes are harder on average for NBA players to make because it's a farther distance. You know, the farther it is, usually the worse people shoot. And, for example, a lot of players over the past like 10 years during the three-point revolution have become okay three-point shooters. That static shot from the corner. PJ Tucker is the best example of this. OG Anunoby to a lesser degree, but OG is not so bad above the break as well. Pascal Siakam is a guy who's been limited as an above the break three-point shooter. A lot of his big run as a three-point shooter initially was reliant on corner threes in his third season. Scotty isn't reliant on corner threes. Corner threes are harder for the offense to create. Corner threes are something the defense is going to want to take away. And above the break threes are something that is available in a wide swath of actions. If you can hit the above the break three, not only can you shift the defense in a way that helps your teammates more, but you'll be able to control for your own three-point volume more. This step, not being reliant on being a corner three-point shooter, this is one of the biggest reasons why Scotty got selected as an all-star. When he is in a half-court sense, Scotty is still not elite at creating his own shot and building out offensive sets for other guys. That's something he's working on. He's 22, for God's sake. It'll come. But how does he control his point scoring in the half court? Because he's already one of the best transition players in all of the NBA as a scorer and as a passer. He hits above the break threes, which are available to him, which help out his teammates, which controls for his volume, and which, like in a game like last night where it is lower volume, you see almost half of his shots come from the three-point line. He shoots it okay. In these games where it's hard to find the middle of the paint, yes, he needs to probe more going forward. But in these types of games, controlling is extremely important. That volume is massive. That three-point shot has buoyed his numbers in the half court. It's a huge deal. It is an immense job that he's done to work on his own skill progression to get this point. He's a guy who's dominated in all the in-between parts of the game. Transition, offensive rebounding, cutting, all the stuff where you're like, I just have to be a good teammate, fill in the blanks, and work as like a wheel greaser in all these spots. He's been doing that for the first 2 seasons of his career, hitting above the break threes, getting to use a little bit of his creation on ball. That's how he controls his usage and his point scoring. That's why we've seen him take that huge 5-point per game jump across this season from 15.3 to 20.2. A lot of it is tied to the above the break three. And if he was scoring 17 points per game, he's not making the All-Star game. But because he's banging above the break threes, he's got the big numbers, he's north of 20, he made it. So, hell yeah. Joining me, my guy Bruce, talk about Scotty B, the All-Star.
Yes, sir. Who would have thought?
I mean, I think you had something. You could probably pull up a tweet that you're like, he's going to make the All-Star game after like 2 weeks of the season. You're like, hell yeah, that's an All-Star.
Yeah, I was definitely, I wouldn't say I was early on it, but I was a big supporter of him making the game. I thought he definitely took that next step, and it was time for him to, really be cemented in the game.
Are you surprised that he got selected? Not that he deserved it, but are you surprised that it happened?
Honestly, a little bit. I thought that Adam Silver would kind of, reward the Celtics for the whole best record thing. Maybe get them a third All Star in there. And I just thought that, yeah, I really thought that they would get a third All Star. And I thought that maybe because of Toronto's record, they might not, look towards Scotty to, be selected. But I'm glad that they did.
Yeah. I just usually, because the Raptors, and this isn't Scotty's fault at all, but usually the record of the team is like very closely tied to All-Star selections. The Raptors being 17-33, 12th in the Eastern Conference, and like 5 games out of not only like not a playoff spot, but a play-in spot. I wondered what they would think of that, especially with Boston being 38-12. They're 5 games ahead of the second seed. I wondered, but honestly, I think that Scotty deserved it over Kristaps. he deserved it over Derek White. I
For
also
sure.
think he deserved it over Jaylen Brown. Like, Jason
I
Tatum,
agree.
to me, is the only player on the Celtics who's better than Scotty. And Trae Young, I think, deserves it. I like there was the three guys who were there was like the sexy blogger pick in Derek White. There
Yeah.
was the like you're a big man and you score the ball and you're really important to the defense selection as far as Kristaps Porzingis. And then there was Scotty. And like obviously Trae, everyone knew Trae was getting selected.
Yeah, he
But
had to.
it's like what is he 27 and 10 he's averaging? It would be
Yeah.
tough. Even though he hasn't gotten selected in past years. It's
Yeah.
tough, man. It's tough to get selected as an all-star in
It
this
really
league.
is.
Like Darius Garland, nope. I know he's been injured, but like even during good seasons, he made it in his second or third year in the league, and then not the year after. Usually,
Yeah.
when a guy makes it that early, that's like perennial every year. De'Aaron Fox didn't make it this year.
Yeah,
Isn't that
that's
kind of crazy?
It's really rough to make it. Too many good guards in the league. They need to expand the rosters.
Yeah,
Need more spots.
15, I think, right?
Yeah, 15 is a sweet spot. Perfect.
Wait, so I have a question though. So if they go 15, you know that Derek White would have made it, right?
I mean, it's a worthy sacrifice to get to 15. I'll say.
Sure. It's the 1 year sacrifice to get to 15 over the course of it. Okay.
Exactly.
I think was it JJ Redick has like he's the guy who did like the video. He's like, it needs to go to 15 because of X, Y, and Z.
I think it was
kind of
Redick.
stuff. Yeah. Let's kind of reminisce on a little bit of Scotty stuff so far this season. What's your favorite performance from him this year?
Man, there's just so many to choose from, but probably the performance against Chicago. I think in the second time that they played, I'm pretty sure.
That was post Siakam trade, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That he was like 33 or 31 points in that game, right?
Yeah, I just remember him just like really controlling and dominating the game, and just it was just really amazing to watch because when you compare it from his earlier seasons, he just looks a lot different. This season, especially with the three ball coming out that night like it has all season. But yeah, that was definitely my favorite Scotty moment / game of the season. Just a crazy game for him.
There was Chicago right after the Pascal trade. 11 of 18 from the field. He got to the line for 9 free throws. He finishes with 31 points, 3 blocks, 3 steals, 6 assists, 7 rebounds. His game score for people who care about that is 27.4. Just like an immense performance and one of the most impressive we've seen from him this season. My favorite game, honestly, was probably the Spurs game. That huge comeback. What was it? 22 points. They came back.
Yeah, right.
And it was like Scotty versus Wemby. It was the 7th game of the season. Scotty, it doesn't like the numbers don't look insane. Like 9 of 20 from the field is not crazy. 5 of 10 from 3 though. Got to the line 11 times. Had 11 rebounds. Had 6 assists. Had 3 steals. Had 3 blocks. Finishes with 30 points. His ability to just like move through games. And this is even during the quiet games, right? Where everyone's like, Scotty, like we kind of want you to pour it on a little bit. Like everybody talking about the Thunder game where they're like, we would have liked a little bit more. He still finishes with 19, 7, and 9. Like he just kind of like sleepwalks into a tremendous amount of statistics that when he actually when he finds like that third quarter burst or that fourth quarter burst, you're going north of like 23. He's just like, if he finds the scheme that he finds the wiggle room on the inside to get to his spots, big numbers. And when he doesn't, he's still been spacing out as a 3-point shooter, so he can still like slowly accumulate points.
Kind of chip in a little bit.
Yeah. And there's been like the Spurs game is obviously an indicator of that, like that takeover ability. We've seen it over the course of his 3 seasons. And on top of that, we see against the Chicago game you're referencing, he got the Raptors, even though they lost ultimately, back into that game because they broke scheme and they just said, okay, we're going to go to Scotty in the post. And I think he created probably like 18 or 20 points, not just for himself, but out of the post for himself and others.
Yeah, it was crazy.
To taking the dribble middle, finding Thad, shaping to it in the dunker spot, like that kind of stuff. That's fantastic. Phoenix Plays E says here that youngest player in NBA history to average 25-5, 1 steal, and 1 block, by the way. So I don't know if you saw this, Makai, but I wrote historic because I guess I forgot that Chris Bosh was selected as a younger All-Star than Scotty, and I was like, Scotty's the youngest Raptor All-Star ever. So egg on my face, I'm a dumbass. But it's still
Jumped the gun a little
historic.
bit.
Yeah, it's still historic because, as Phoenix Plays E says, he's got the statistics for me.
Yeah.
Per StatMuse, says Phoenix Plays E. This is a cool thing. I'm excited to watch him in the All-Star game, catch a couple lobs.
Where
I don't know if he'll be in like a skills challenge or something like that. I don't know if they're still
I'd like
doing
that too, honestly. Scotty, I think he'd do well in the skills challenge.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know if they're still doing like the team link ups and all that kind of stuff. Like I don't really know, but as far as that goes, it would be cool to see him like running the court, like the big throw ahead dribble, the passing, because he's one of the most accurate passers that I've seen over the past however long. And then
Yeah.
shooting, I think he can do just as well. Is there anything you're looking forward to in particular from like All-Star weekend for Scotty?
For Scotty, I think it's just see some great dunks because the All Star game, like besides the year that Kobe passed away, they didn't really take it that seriously. It's just been back to the usual, like we're just gonna throw some lobs, get some threes up. So for Scotty, a good All Star game is probably maybe like three dunks, some pretty cool looking dunks. Maybe get out some great ones, some lob dunks, like some great passes, some half court passes, like just all the flashy stuff you can do.
I think when it comes to Scotty, he's not like dunk contest level dunker.
You
I
know.
think when you're too long, people don't get as gassed for your dunks. Like, or if you're too tall and too long, like a
Mhm.
Wembanyama dunk, he has to like jump from an insane amount away, or he has to like put a guy in the rim with him for anyone to be like, oh, nice. And Scotty, when I see him like in practice or in like clips that the team promotes, his like fancy dunk is usually like between the legs or the reverse 360. Like
Mhm.
the Vince Carter, like you go against the grain.
Mhm.
So I expect to see something like that. Phoenix Plays E brings up kind of the funny thing. I'm sure you remember it, Kai, when Maxey and Barnes were both rookies. Or sorry, Maxey was a second-year player. Scotty was a rookie, and they were in the skills challenge together. They
Mhm.
didn't make a single shot.
Uh,
Do you remember that?
yeah, I remember that. I remember that.
Okay, now here they are. Wouldn't it be cool if they paired them up again for like the ultimate redemption? You know?
That would be nice. Now they're
Yeah.
both all stars. They really done, made it. Maybe they could redeem themselves in the challenge.
Who else? I actually tell me just like tell me what you think about Scotty's season overall. I need to go look up who else was in that challenge to see like if they're the first guys to make the All-Star team. But yeah, go off.
Yeah, Scotty's season overall. I mean, I remember we did a preseason podcast where it was like, let's kind of try to guess Scotty's stats. And a lot of the guesses that I was like thinking in my head, I'm like, I don't want to get too crazy because like for him to jump from like what was he averaging last year? Like 15 points, right?
15.3.
Yeah, last year he was averaging like 15. So I was saying like a modest like 18 points. But he really just has blown every one of my expectations out of the water, whether it be on defense, whether it be as a 3-point shooter, whether it be as a passer. Like he's just really the kind of improvement that Scotty has had, from last year to this year is kind of crazy. And especially, I know you did a piece on his improvement as a shooter. So his improvement as a shooter has been pretty kind of unprecedented as well. And it just really goes to show like sometimes these players aren't lying. Like when they say like, like immediate days, like, oh, well, what did you work on? Oh yeah, I've been working on shooting. I'm gonna be a great shooter. And then it's like, all right. But he really went out and like, really was a great shooter this year. It's kind of crazy.
I when I was looking at like media day for when I talked to Scotty, and you've heard me say this before, I talked to Scotty at the end of last season, and I thought it was crazy because I've told this anecdote before. Sorry to everybody who's heard it, but he mentioned to me like he's going in the off season and he's like, I got to work on my cardio. I want to get in like better endurance and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, that seems a little bit odd. And maybe that's my aesthetic bias because he looks like an immense, he looks like an incredible shape, and he
Mm-hmm.
is. But talking about like cardio, when a lot of people are obviously at that time, he had just shot like 29% from three, they're thinking like skill progression, the handle, the jump shot. And he says, I need to like get in better shape to play the full game. And then I was like, I feel like he's just saying something. And he comes back on media day and he's like, yeah, I worked on getting in better shape so I can play. And I was like, you really? I couldn't believe it. And not in like a this was the wrong thing to work on way, just like, oh, a lot of players say they're going to work on something and they're just kind of like talking to media, like, yeah, here's your quote. But Scotty obviously did, and you see it. The statistic that Phoenix quoted 25-5 with 1 block and 1 steal at least is like you're expending a ton of energy all over the floor.
Yeah, he really is.
Scotty is like, whether it's being like that backline sweeper where you have to cover a lot of ground that we saw Pascal kind of emerge in, Scotty in that role. Jaren Jackson Jr. is probably the best at it across the last like maybe 5-10 years of the NBA. That's a lot of cardio. You got to get up and down the floor. You got to get around the court.
And like when he always gets the rebound, is always pushing it, multiple times per game. A lot of cardio there.
And we also see him, of course, playing like above the break too. They'll use him in a ton of different schemes, like as a point of attack defender and all that kind of stuff. So that's been cool to see. Here's a good one. Let me read some quotes from Reddit because I've been digging around on this.
Oh, Reddit, so, I love Reddit's great.
Scotty Barnes and Tyrese Maxey in the skills challenge. Top comment: 2 unclassy, overrated bums with 0 real rings. Fitting. Whatever. Okay. No, okay, I don't want to do that. But anyway, people were talking a lot of trash about these guys, and they both went on to be like the best players out of that grouping. I can't find who the group was, though. It's all just like, oh, Scotty wanted to hug Tyrese. And Scotty didn't hit anything. But I don't want to watch it all back. But yeah, anyway, I think I'm just going to say like, hey, it's cool to see that those are probably the 2 best players from that skills challenge at that time. And then obviously, they're all-stars now, which is awesome. People are talking about like cardio in chat with like Steph Curry. Solar Tear says strength and conditioning helped Grady and Scotty shoot the 3 much better. Yeah, the Grady comment is from me for what it's worth. Like that quote is from me at Summer League. So as far as like the Grady stuff, I'm aware. I don't think Grady's conditioning is at the point where we can say like it worked and it's here. He has been shooting the ball better lately, which is really nice. And it's mostly because of, the corner threes. But yeah, it's nice to see Scotty like translate a bunch of stuff to his game. It's nice to see Grady kind of picking it up. Is that Kobe in the background?
Yeah, he's
Bring him on screen, man. You think these people don't want to see a dog? Bring Kobe on screen.
Come here.
So come on. He's got that dog in him just like Scotty. As far as like Scotty, though, I think we're getting near the end of this. Hell yeah. There he is. Superstar.
Kobe, say hi. He got crazy. He hates screens.
Oh, really?
Yeah, every time I tell him to look at the screen, he starts tweaking. Like,
oh, wow. That's kind of elite. Kids these days.
Opposite of an iPad kid.
Yeah, exactly. He's the opposite of an iPad kid. That's kind of funny. Let's do, before we get out of here, expectations for Scotty for the rest of the season, and then kind of, I'll do a plug for the live podcast because that's in a few hours from now. But what are your expectations?
Big day for y'all
for the rest of the year.
But for the rest of the year, I think post trade, he's definitely been getting a lot more attention, and he's definitely been having to grow through some of those things. So I think for the rest of the year, just see him kind of handle the defensive attention, better and better. And not to say that he's like played bad, but I do think that he was, much more, what's the word for it? He was much more productive earlier in the season. And I feel like this, after the post-Siakam trade, things have kind of looked differently for him. So really just handling the kind of attention that stars get, that all stars get. And my expectation for him is just, still be a great defender, still be great, on the back line, still, be a good shooter above the break, corner, wherever it is, and just kind of, being a great playmaker as well. I don't expect, him to like jump up and score on production because of the attention, but maybe a little jump in assists. I would probably expect that.
I think that's probably about where I am too. It's tough to score like north of 20 points every game. That consistency is like tough to come by. Yeah. And especially the thing that I want to see is like, you can see it. There wasn't really much of a free throw attempt jump from year 1 to year 2. There's been a meaningful one from year 2 to year 3 as Scotty takes less threes because what's happened basically is this is borne out in the numbers as well. Pascal leaves. Pascal Siakam is one of the most often doubled players in the NBA. When you have a player who gets doubled, teams will often collapse middle, leaving people open to shoot threes. Basically, I think Scotty is like between 1 and 1.5 less wide open three-point attempts per game. And since Pascal left, he's shooting worse on catch and shoots. He's shooting worse overall from three. And I think that's probably just a product of like less of those big wide open attempts. He is, however, getting into the lane more often, which is fantastic. The thing I want to see is like, yes, some of that creation in the lane to create assists, whether it's out to the three-point line for guys like Quickly, Barrett every once in a while, maybe Wara, depending on how it goes the rest of the season. We'll see what happens with Gary over the course of the trade deadline. I'm not sure, but I want to see free throws. Like if he's going the games where he goes north of 6 free throw attempts, I'm very happy. The same way, like, you know, you look for these small things that you want to see. I want to see Grady just getting shots up.
Yeah.
That's my greedy thing for Grady is like just want to see him get shots up because he does the in-between stuff so well. Scotty's been doing tremendous in-between stuff for forever. I just want to see him with that big hulking body and the fact that he can get downhill and dribble and he can put guys in jail and guys do struggle with his physicality. Get to the line. At 4 attempts per game, I want to see that big post All-Star break. I want to see like 6 attempts per game. Paolo Banchero does it. Better player than Paolo Banchero. He's been better this season. Go prove it again. Get to the line more often than this guy. So that's kind of where I'm at. Van Hoot 2234 says, "Can I buy the Minute Basketball shirt and not go to the RR party?" We're selling them there, so I don't know what to tell you. And my apologies. Although I do really love that you're interested in the Minute Basketball shirt because it's cool as hell.
Shout out Caitlin Cooper.
And shout out Caitlin Cooper as well, of course. That's the hot girl basketball shirt that I'm wearing right now.
Yes, sir.
She's got me. I have 3 Caitlin Cooper shirts at this point in time.
Sheesh.
Yeah.
Merched out.
Yeah. Van Hoot 2234. When I go there, Lewis will be bringing the shirts because they're at his house. I'll count and see how many there are. And if like there's some at the end, I'll keep it in mind. And I might grab one for you. And then you just let me know in chat or whatever. Or hit me up on Twitter. That's kind of my thoughts on that. I'm selling merch instead of doing a podcast. My goodness. Yeah, I got capitalism entrepreneur brain right now. I was going to say that. Okay, so I feel like that's about a podcast. I'll take this time at the end of it to give everybody a plug. I think there's still a couple, maybe a few tickets left to the live show downtown in Toronto tonight. The doors open at 6. The first panel is like at maybe 7:15 with myself, William Liu, Amana Dawn, Esfandiar Barahini, and Trevon Heath. And that's the first panel. So that'll be fun. We're talking about kind of like expectations, trade speculation, vibes, etc. The second panel of the night will be hosted by Louis Zatzman with Blake Murphy, also Lindsey Dunn, also Brandon Leftwich, also Andrew Damlin, and I think that's it as well. So that's the podcast. So hell yeah, that'll be good. Coco says not capitalism. I only say it in jest. You know, I say it because it's the opposite of my, I suppose, beliefs. Anyway, Makai, anything you want to say before we get out of here?
Buy your tickets for the live podcast show. It's gonna be great. It's always great every year. Show some love, show some support. Let's get this money.
Yeah. Van Hoot 2234 says Makai is a man of taste based on his background posters. Hell yeah.
I appreciated that, Van Hoot.
Yeah. Okay, Makai, I feel like we're going to get out of here. Also, if anybody wants to follow Makai on Twitter, is it still Makai French Fry? Is that the @
Just Kai. Kai French Fry.
Oh, okay, well, there you go. Kai French Fry. Type that in on Twitter. Follow an up-and-coming writer. The man who is going to eventually have this podcast from me someday. If I ever get bought out by one of the big companies or something like that. Yeah, I'll see some of y'all at the podcast tonight. Thanks everybody for hopping in. I guess like the video on your way out. It's free. It helps the algorithm, etc. From myself and Makai and Kobe, of course. We'll see you. Okay, bye-bye. Peace.